What's up, my dudes? My name is Sister Turley, and this is a track review of Pleasant Valley MX. So this is definitely a pretty tricky track right here. You wouldn't think it just looking at it, but I'm telling you, dudes, it's pretty gnarly. There's a lot of off-cambered micro bump kind of corners on it, so if you're not really careful and really patient, it'll just jump up and grab your front end out of nowhere. So you got to be really careful of that. And I don't really know if it's the way the ground feels or if it's the way the track's built or what it is, but if you don't feather that throttle around the corner, your front end's just going to go down instantly. So you really got to be careful of that on this track. But as far as the jumps and all that stuff, it's really easy. It's more of a beginner, just a beginner local track kind of vibe to it, but I'm telling you, it's difficult, man. It's just one of those tracks the entire time you're on the track, you're kind of skating around hoping to God your front end doesn't spin out, so that's kind of a tricky element to it, but it's just a less traction than your average ordinary motocross track, but it has a lot of rough, just kind of really smaller, choppy kind of bumps. So even though those seem easy, it's not super big bumps, it gets tricky because you're so tempted to just hold the throttle down because the bumps aren't that big, but they're big enough to where it starts to skate your back end around in some of these longer straightaways and stuff when you get up there in like 5th, 6th gear. So you got to be careful of that too, but overall fairly easy, and it's pretty fun when you can get it down, but it's that kind of track that your front end's going down left and right, and you really have no idea why. And maybe that's just me. I don't know. That could be just me, and I haven't played MX Simulator in a couple days, but I don't know. It just kind of feels like that track that your front end's like so uneasy, so uneven all the way around the track. It's like you're just constantly having to keep your balance on it. It doesn't just naturally feel like normal dirt. It feels more like more of a sand kind of feeling to it. So but fun nonetheless. And there's a lot of pretty decent ruts on this track. They're not huge or anything, but there's some corners that don't have any ruts on them, and those are the ones that get a little more tricky because that's where your back end's going to want to start trying to spin around and stuff on you. So you just got to kind of feather the throttle and be a little bit more easy. Don't just go 0 to 100 real quick in the corners, you know what I'm saying, dude? So you just got to go about 50 to 75% throttle at first, and then go to full throttle, and that's going to help you a lot on this track, or just be kind of short shifting and get in a higher gear quicker. And that's kind of what I was doing, and it was making it a whole lot easier. So but yeah, as far as the jumps and your like rollers and stuff like that, everything's super easy on that side of things, but just the filling of the track and kind of the choppy bumps and stuff on it makes it very tricky and very, very challenging, very like you just wouldn't think it would be like that. When you first hop on the track, you think, oh, I'm just going to breeze right through this track. Let's just go wide open, dude. There's no big jumps, but it starts to get really tricky on you when you realize that the way the actual ground feels, but also all your little rough bumps and stuff on it. So this corner right here is probably the hardest one because it kind of goes up in that off camber, and then you have kind of small ruts, and they're really not even ruts because they're so small, so you really can't get down in them very good. But it's there are some decent ruts on this track, but there's a lot of corners that have those almost too small that you can't even really get into them kind of ruts. So you just got to be careful when you're trying to really dive down into those because it's not going to work out very good, okay? So but yeah, fun little triple right there, and then just tricky track, man. That's the only thing I can really say about it. It's fun and all, but definitely more on that tricky side, no doubt. So I would say I'm gonna go ahead and give this track a as far as everything looks pretty good, as far as your actual scaling of your jumps and your ground decal, all that stuff looks pretty decent, and it definitely has a totally different feel than most motocross tracks. So definitely gotta give a hats off for that. But I guess I would go ahead and rate it I'm going to give this track a solid. I like the roughness and everything. I just feel like the way the track feels is so tricky. So this track can definitely get a little bit annoying when you feel like your front end's just diving down in every single corner. But other than that, it's pretty tricky and very challenging, but it's a lot of fun though. So I'm gonna give this track I'm gonna give it an 8 overall, and I'm gonna say the difficulty, I'm gonna say it's hard because you're gonna have some some difficulty in these corners and some of these little micro bumps and stuff like that. Just, it's got a lot of little, I guess you would call them aids. That's what a lot of people call them, where it just, you know, it's got them areas that just want to jump up and grab you and throw you down on the ground for no apparent reason whatsoever. It definitely has a couple of little sections like that, but I think it's just kind of the way the dirt feels and where some of the roughness is and stuff. It makes it a little tricky like that. But so anyways, I appreciate all you watching these videos, and I'll keep on making them.